I was putting together a list of the most walkable cities in North America, and I thought, yeah, this is great, but A, everyone already knows this, and B, it's nice that a place is walkable in theory, but if it's too hot or too cold, how nice is it really to have to be outside walking around for everything? So then, what are the most walkable places that also have good weather for most of the year? But wait, if we stop there, then we just wind up with a list of the most expensive places to live, and if we could afford that, we would probably already live there. So then, let's make a list of the cities that are the most walkable, are affordable, and have good weather for most of the year. Okay, I am looking at walkability, affordability, and weather. I'm only discussing the top 20 here, but I will link to the full list in the description. The point of this list is as a rough indication of what your quality of life might be like if you live in one of these cities without a car. So, overall walkability and transit access has a slightly heavier weight here with a scale of 0 to 150, although any city with a score under 40 for walkability was immediately cut from consideration. Affordability is on a curve based on Honolulu, the most expensive city that I looked at, and that set the baseline of 0. A city that's 50% cheaper to live in than Honolulu would get a score of 50. Any score for affordability below 20 got cut from the list. The weather is on a theoretical scale of 30 to 100, with 30 being the most miserable weather you can think of, and 100 being the most gorgeous weather on Earth. All of the cities I looked at scored between 49 and 93. I added these three scores together to come up with a livability score. I started with 143 cities, and after cutting a few places for having a walk score below 40 or an affordability score below 20, I was left with 122 cities in the US and Canada. Remember, there are trade-offs. Very few cities in the world can hit that perfect sweet spot of weather, walkability, and affordability, but almost all of these cities score strongly in at least one category, so you decide which balance is right for you. We don't really live in a whole metro area. I'm originally from New Jersey, and I've never been to Bergen County. I still have no idea what the North Shore of Long Island looks like. We spend most of our time split between the neighborhood we live in and where we go to work or school. So the data that I'm using here is at the city level, not at the metropolitan level. I took the walk score, bike score, and transit score and averaged them for each city to come up with a car-free score. But just because a city has a great walk score doesn't necessarily mean that a lot of people are out there walking. So I looked at what percentage of people in each city actually walk or bike to work and added that to the car-free score. But then there's a slight problem there. A lot of these cities are geographically tiny, like DC, Boston, and San Francisco. That means that a large percentage of people in these smaller cities are going to be living within walking or cycling distance of downtown. People in big cities that are geographically large, like Chicago or New York City, rely more on transit to cover those larger distances. So I added in the percentage of people taking transit to work to come up with a total car-free score. Brooklyn is at the top of that list with a car-free score of 150. So if we stop there, then our top 10 list for car-free cities would surprise no one. If you see a city name here and then another city name in parentheses, it's just telling you which metro area it's in. So number 1, Brooklyn. Number 2, New York, but all 5 boroughs. Cambridge, Massachusetts. San Francisco. Jersey City. Boston. DC. Berkeley. Vancouver. And Montreal. And the bottom of the list probably isn't going to surprise anyone either. Below 60 points on this list and things start to get inconvenient without a car. Below 50 points and you're going to be confined to a few walkable, transit-accessible neighborhoods near the core. Below 40, and it's really just not possible. But also take this with a grain of salt. A few cities at the bottom of the list do have very walkable cores with decent transit service. It's just that because they've annexed so much of their car-dependent suburbs, it drags their averages down. So bottom of the list, El Paso, Garland, Texas, Anchorage, Alaska, Scottsdale, Arizona, Chandler, Arizona, Irving, Texas, Lexington, Fayette, Kentucky, Omaha, Nebraska, San Antonio, Texas, and Louisville, Kentucky. Next, I look for monthly average high temperatures between 50 degrees Fahrenheit and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. 2 important points there. Below 50 Fahrenheit, and the wind chill starts to make it feel a lot colder quickly. Remember also that that's the average high for the day, so most of the day is going to be cooler than that. Also, 90 degrees in LA can feel completely different from 90 degrees in Atlanta. So, in order to equalize for that, I use the heat index, or the feels like temp, and not the actual temperature. So, 90 is probably 90 in Vegas, but in BC, 90 might mean 84. Also, this metric does not bias southern cities. By my scale, Miami has 6 months of good weather, and Boston has 8. There are a bunch of cities that fall into this range for at least 8 months per year, and this shouldn't really come as a surprise. The cores of our best cities were built in the world before central air conditioning, and people took weather into account when deciding where to settle. But while a lot of these cities have good temperatures, on average some of them are miserably gray and rainy for months at a time. So I added in the annual hours of sunshine. And this doesn't necessarily bias southern latitudes either. Winnipeg is sunnier than Cleveland. Calgary has a better weather score than St. Louis. The best score you can have for temperature is 60, and the best score you can have for sunshine is 40. Add those together and you get a weather score. The top weather score on this list is Oakland, California at 93.5. The lowest weather score is Quebec City at 49. Sorry guys. And again, a top 10 list based on weather alone is not going to surprise anyone. It's dominated by California, and it's basically a big triangle from Portland to Denver to San Diego. It's not until you get down past the top 20 that you start to see cities in Georgia and the Carolinas. And your top 10, Oakland, Santa Ana, Long Beach, San Francisco, Berkeley, Fremont, San Diego, Chula Vista, Los Angeles, and Pasadena. The top 10, you don't even make it out of California, but that probably goes without saying. It would be easy to just look at median rent and call it a day, but living somewhere involves a lot more than just paying rent. Food is a big part of a household budget, and transportation can be as well. Income also matters. Median incomes vary from place to place, but your income in that place also depends on what you do for a living. City planning pays well in Florida, it does not in Pennsylvania. So, for those reasons, I'm looking at total cost of living relative to the most expensive city on the list, Honolulu, and Manhattan was a close second. In other words, you need about half as much money to enjoy similar material comfort in Cleveland versus Manhattan. But that's Manhattan, and not all of New York is that expensive. So, just like with Jersey City, Brooklyn also gets its own score here. The most affordable city I looked at was Lubbock, Texas, with an affordability score of 151. But the car-free score for Lubbock was in the basement, so it didn't make the cut. For the cities in the final 100, the most affordable is Glendale and suburban Phoenix. Also remember that when I say a place is affordable, I mean that in the subjective relative to everywhere else sense, not that it's objectively affordable. Okay, so we take the car-free score, the weather score, and the affordability score, we put them together and we get a livability score. Let's get into this list. Number 20, St. Paul, Minnesota. St. Paul is coming in with a car-free score of 71, an affordability score of 102.4, and a weather score of 62.1, for an overall livability score of 235. St. Paul has a respectable 14.6% of residents walk, cycle, or take transit to work, but that's still pretty low for this list. The affordability is really doing the work here. Number 19, Brick City, Newark, New Jersey. Newark showing slightly better weather overall than St. Paul. Lower affordability, Newark being in the expensive New York City metro area. But Newark really shines on the transit front with an impressive 32.8% of residents walking, biking, or taking transit to work. Number 18, Hartford, Connecticut. Hartford is one of those cities that has decent affordability but is running mid on almost every other category. What gets it across the finish line is the fact that almost 20% of residents walk, bike, or take transit to work. Enough to bump it up to number 18 with a total livability score of 238. Number 17, Eugene, Oregon. A lot like Hartford actually, but while it's only around 16% for transit active transport users, it makes up for it with warmer winters and better affordability, giving Eugene an overall score of 239. Number 16, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh has the same weather score as Hartford, is slightly less affordable versus Eugene, but Pittsburgh is crushing it on journey to work, with over 30% choosing transit or active transport as their mode. Number 15, Boulder, Colorado. Boulder comes up posting the best weather score so far, runs decent on affordability, and journey to work comes in at 28.5% for transit and active transport, which carries the car-free score. Number 14, Erie, Pennsylvania. Erie, PA comes in with a low car-free score, a not great weather score, but is absolutely carried by its affordability score of 119. Of all the cities that made the cut, Erie is the third most affordable and has the highest car-free score of any city in the top 17 most affordable. Number 13, Oakland, California. Oakland comes in with low affordability, but a pretty high car-free score, and come on, the weather really does the work here. Oakland weather comes in at number 1 on this list. As someone who used to live there, I can confirm. Number 12, Portland, Oregon. Great at nothing, good at everything. Decent weather if you don't mind dreary but mild winters. Decent affordability. 25% of the city is walking, cycling, or taking transit to work. Number 11, Philadelphia. The highest car-free score in this top 20 list so far. Overall affordability pretty similar to Portland. That weather score coming in under 60 because winters can be frigid and summer can also be brutal. 36% of the city is taking transit, walking, or cycling to work. Number 10, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Ann Arbor gets it done by having a strong car-free score, great affordability, and a better weather score than Philly because it skips most of the hot and humid summers. Also, owing to its large student population, 32% of people in Ann Arbor are taking care of business via active transport or transit. Just over half of that 32% are walking. Number 9, Minneapolis. Where Minneapolis loses out to Ann Arbor in affordability and weather, it more than makes up for in walkability. And 25% of Minneapolitans are walking or biking to work. Number 8, Paradise, Nevada. Yeah, when people say they're going to Vegas, more than likely they mean they're going to Paradise. This is part of unincorporated Clark County. In other words, the census designates Paradise as a place with distinct boundaries, but Clark County delivers municipal services because there's no local government there. This is the only unincorporated census-designated place on this list, and it surprises me as much as it surprises you. On the car-free score, as you might expect, we come in 1 point lower than Erie, Pennsylvania, but Paradise is really knocking it out of the park on affordability, and the weather score helps out here as well. But we all know Las Vegas is hot for a good part of the year. It's really the 3,825 hours of annual sunshine that are holding this score up. And that's 3,825 hours out of a total potential of just under 4,400 hours, because that's the maximum amount of hours that the sun is above the horizon. Number 7, Brooklyn. Brooklyn just crushes the car-free score. Top of the list. 68.4% of people in Brooklyn leave their car at home, or just don't have one. The weather score isn't terrible, but doesn't help out either, and the affordability really drags the average down. Number 6, Glendale, Arizona. Coming in with the lowest car-free score in the top 20, Glendale, Arizona is also the most affordable in the top 20. And that affordability is really carrying the weight for an average weather score and a basement car-free score. 95.3% of people in Glendale are driving to work, and it's about as suburban as it gets in this top 20. On the other hand, if you're looking for an affordable place to live in a large metro with lots of jobs, access to a major airport, there aren't many places that are better. All right, before we get into the top 5, let's check out the cities that just missed the top 20. Number 26, Cleveland. Yep, I said it, Cleveland. Not so great on the car-free score or weather, but scoring over 101 on affordability helps things out here. Number 25, Santa Ana. Just south of Anaheim and the other OC, Santa Ana has a large, historic, walkable downtown, Amtrak and Metro rail service on 2 routes each, and the OC streetcar is coming very soon. Santa Ana isn't crushing it on the car-free score or affordability scores, but actually isn't terrible either, and the SoCal weather is really doing the work here. Number 24, Irving, Texas. At 41, this is one of the lowest car-free scores on the list, but Irving stays near the top due to its affordability. Number 23, Tempe, Arizona, another Phoenix suburb with light rail, a streetcar, and a large student population. Tempe doesn't rank as high as Glendale because it's less affordable. Number 22, Chicago. High car-free score, and surprisingly mid-affordability. Chicago's gotten pretty expensive over the years, and that tough weather keeps Chicago out of the top 20. Number 21, perhaps a surprise, Columbia, South Carolina. It's buoyed by an older, walkable core and a large student population at USC. Columbia shines with high affordability. Okay, back to the list. Number 5, Jersey City. This is probably not a surprise. JC's made a name for itself over the last decade or so as the affordable alternative to NYC. It's not the central city of the region, but has a transit network that's the envy of much larger cities. It's affordable for New York, but still not very affordable. Doesn't have the best weather. That transit score, though, 57.4% of JC heads are going car-free. Number 4, Long Beach, California. Long Beach, yeah. Car-free score of 72, not terrible for SoCal. 85.8 on affordability, pretty good for SoCal. Weather score on par for SoCal. Been to the LBC a few times. Amazing airport, rail access to LA, and plenty of stuff going on locally that you probably don't need to venture into LA that often. Number 3, Montreal. The first and only Canadian city in the top 26 appears at number 3. How does that happen? Because Montreal has a great car-free score and it's a lot more affordable than other Canadian cities. And actually, the next Canadian city on the list, at number 32, is a suburb of Montreal, Longueuil. People say that English spelling is crazy. After that is Vancouver at number 50, and then back to Laval, just north of Montreal, at 63. The combo of low weather scores and low affordability keep the better transit cities out of the running, and the other more affordable Canadian cities are still not that affordable and have relatively low car-free scores. Number 2, Cambridge, Massachusetts, giving Brooklyn a run for its money on the car-free front. 61.6% of folks in Cambridge are doing it sans car. Not affordable, but still a good deal cheaper than Brooklyn, and with a slightly better weather score, Cambridge gets up there. And coming in at number 1, Berkeley, California. Berserkly. Not cheap at all, but for the Bay Area it's reasonable. A high car-free score buoyed by the fact that 50% of denizens get there without a car, and, of course, that weather is pushing it across the finish line. There you have it, folks. Top 26 most livable cities in North America. Do you agree? Disagree? Do you live in one of these cities? Let me know. I'm Jim. This is Urban Legends. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.